my brother inherited everything. But I was the one who took care of our parents. I never expected the reading of my parents' will to be a moment that would define the rest of my life. Growing up, my older brother Ryan and I were like night and day. He was the golden child, charming, extroverted, always knowing exactly what to say. I, on the other hand, was quiet, focused, and often dismissed. While Ryan was off partying through college on our parents' dime, I was the one who came home every weekend to check on Mom's blood pressure and drive Dad to his physical therapy appointments after his knee surgery. I didn't complain. Not once. That was just who I was. Family first. After our father was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and Mom's arthritis worsened, things became more serious. I moved back into the house, leaving behind my small apartment and an almost promising career at a marketing firm. I figured it would just be for a few months. A year, max. That year turned into 6. 6 years of cooking, cleaning, doctor visits, managing medications, dealing with Mom's emotional breakdowns, and Dad's deteriorating memory. I didn't date. I barely saw my friends. My life revolved around them. Meanwhile, Ryan visited once a year, twice if we were lucky. He'd show up, flash his perfect teeth, bring some generic flowers from CVS, and let Mom fawn over him like he was a war hero. He never offered help. Never stayed the night. Never even asked how I was doing. Still, I didn't resent him. Not really. I told myself that we all have different capacities for responsibility. I just happened to be the one who could handle this. When Dad passed, I was the one holding his hand. When Mom followed just 8 months later, I was the one who found her. I gave the eulogies. I picked out the coffins. I handled every legal document, every insurance call, every difficult conversation with distant relatives who suddenly appeared out of nowhere. And then came the will. I didn't expect to be rich. Our parents had a modest home and some savings. What I expected, no, assumed, was fairness. Recognition. At least some small token of appreciation for the years I gave up, the career I put on hold, the personal life I never had. Instead, the lawyer cleared his throat and read the line that made my blood go cold. All property, financial accounts, and assets shall be passed down in full to our beloved son, Ryan Thomas Whitaker. That was it. I blinked. I laughed, actually laughed out loud, thinking it had to be a mistake. Maybe he skipped a page. Maybe he meant split evenly. I waited. But no. Ryan sat beside me, stunned silent for the first time in his life. I could feel his eyes on me, but I refused to look at him. I was the one who had been there. I was the one who changed adult diapers and spoon-fed oatmeal and argued with Medicare. And now, I was nothing. The lawyer handed Ryan a folder. He handed me nothing. When we walked out into the parking lot, Ryan finally spoke. "Anna, I didn't know. I swear. I thought they'd split everything." "Of course you didn't know," I snapped. "You weren't here for anything." He looked genuinely guilty, but what was guilt now? It wasn't going to pay my rent or reimburse 6 years of unpaid labor. I had $328 in my bank account and no job. No life to return to. "What do you want me to do?" Ryan asked. I can give you some of it." "Don't," I said, raising my hand. "Don't make this worse. Because if he gave me anything, it would feel like charity. Like a favor. Like he owned something that should have been mine to begin with." I walked away. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove back to the house, no, his house now, and packed my things in silence. But something inside me changed that day. I had always been the good one. The reliable one. The quiet, loyal daughter. But loyalty gets you nothing in the end. And I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. I didn't sleep the night after the will reading. I lay on the couch in the den, the same couch I used to nap on between giving Mom her meds and microwaving Dad's bland, low-sodium dinners. Now it felt foreign, like I was trespassing in someone else's home. Correction, Ryan's home. I woke up early, before the sun rose, and started packing. There wasn't much to take. A few boxes of clothes, a handful of old books, and a couple of framed photos I couldn't bear to leave behind. Everything else? It felt tainted. Ryan called around 9 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Then he texted. "Can we talk? I feel awful." I didn't reply. By noon, I was loading my last box into the back of my dusty old Toyota Corolla. I stood in the driveway for a second, staring at the house. The house I'd grown up in. The house I sacrificed so much to keep running. It looked smaller now. Colder. The screen door creaked behind me. I didn't have to turn around to know it was Ryan. "You're just gonna leave without saying anything?" I finally faced him. He looked rough, no gel in his usually perfect hair, bags under his eyes. He was holding a cup of coffee and a folded envelope. "I didn't want to make a scene," I said flatly. "Anna, please. Just hear me out." I sighed and leaned against the trunk of my car. "Okay. Talk." He rubbed the back of his neck, clearly uncomfortable. I had no idea they'd do this. Mom never said a word. If I'd known, I would have said something. "You were here. You did everything. You deserve at least half. More than half." I stared at him, waiting for the catch. "I talked to a lawyer this morning," he continued. "There's a way I can transfer the house to you. Or at least co-own it. And I want to split the savings, too. 50-50. My heart jumped for a moment. Hope? Relief? But then that part of me, the part that had gone numb after the will, kicked back in. "It's not about the money, Ryan. It's about the fact that they didn't see me. They didn't think I mattered. That all those years meant nothing." He swallowed hard. "I don't know why they did it. Maybe they thought I needed it more. Maybe they assumed you'd be okay. Or maybe they just didn't think it through." I almost laughed. Didn't think it through? That sounded about right. He held out the envelope. "This is a check. For half of what was in Dad's investment account. Just take it. Please." I hesitated, then took the envelope. I didn't open it. "This doesn't change anything," I said quietly. "I know," he said. We stood there in silence for a long time. "I'm gonna crash at Lauren's for a few weeks," I said. "I'll figure things out from there." "You always do," he said. And with that, I got in the car and drove away. Lauren was my best friend since college, the kind of ride-or-die who doesn't ask questions, just hands you a blanket, a wine glass, and space to breathe. She took one look at me when I showed up at her doorstep and said, "Oh honey. Tell me everything." I broke down for the first time. Ugly crying. Snot and hiccups. I told her everything, the will, Ryan, the years I gave up. "Girl, you were robbed," she said without hesitation. "That's not just unfair, it's cruel." She let me stay in her guest room, helped me update my resume, and even pushed me to go to therapy. I hadn't realized how much I needed someone to say, "You deserve better." But as the days passed, something kept gnawing at me. The house. Something didn't sit right. I started replaying conversations in my head. The way Mom used to get quiet whenever I mentioned long-term plans. How she once told me, "You'll always land on your feet." And Dad, in his more lucid moments, used to say cryptic things like, "We just want what's best for both of you." And then it hit me. What if they didn't write that will themselves? What if someone changed it? My hands trembled as I picked up the phone and called the law office that had handled the will. "Hi, this is Anna Whitaker. I was hoping to get a copy of my parents' original estate documents, if that's possible." There was a pause. "Oh," the receptionist said. "Actually, there was a revision to the will just a few months before your mother passed." My stomach dropped. "A revision?" I echoed. "Yes. It was filed in September. September. That was the month I had taken Mom to the ER twice and had barely slept. I remembered Ryan had flown in for a quick visit. Just a weekend. Barely 48 hours. He had been alone with her while I was out picking up prescriptions. My blood turned to ice. What exactly happened during that visit? And just how far would my brother go to secure his golden child status? I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. The idea that my own brother, the kid I used to build blanket forts with, the teen I'd covered for when he snuck out at night, could manipulate our dying mother into changing her will? It sounded paranoid. Bitter. But I couldn't ignore the feeling in my gut. I asked the lawyer to send me a copy of the updated will. When it arrived by email that afternoon, I read it at least 5 times. It was short. Clinical. All assets to Ryan Whitaker. No mention of me. No thank you. No acknowledgement. There was a signature. Mom's. But something about it felt off. I pulled out an old birthday card she'd written me 3 years ago, one of the last times she'd written anything before her handwriting started deteriorating. The difference was jarring. Mom had always had elegant, loopy script. The signature on the will was jagged. Hesitant. Almost like it had been traced. I felt sick. I called Lauren into the room. Does this look like Mom's handwriting to you? She examined both. I mean, maybe. If she was super sick. But this one looks cleaner. Too neat. Exactly what I was thinking. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a forensic document analyst. It felt extreme, but I had to know. She agreed to take a look at both documents if I could send her high-resolution scans. I emailed them that evening and barely slept. The next day, she called. I can't make a definitive legal judgment without more samples, she began, but based on what I see here, these 2 signatures were almost certainly not written by the same person. I froze. Are you saying the will might be fake? I'm saying it's highly suspicious. You should talk to a probate attorney. I didn't call Ryan. Not yet. I needed more information first. So I went back to the house. Technically, I wasn't trespassing. I still had my keys, and I knew Ryan wasn't home. He'd texted Lauren earlier asking if I was okay. She'd told him I needed space. Which was true. Just, not the full story. I walked through the front door like a ghost returning to its old haunt. Everything looked the same, but colder. Ryan had already started redecorating. New throw pillows. A stupid decorative sign in the kitchen that read live, laugh, love. Gross. I went straight to the file cabinet in Dad's old study. It was locked, of course, but Ryan was predictable. He always used the same password, our old address. Bingo. Inside were folders of tax documents, retirement forms, and buried beneath a stack of junk, a manila envelope labeled Will, August. My hands shook as I opened it. There it was. The original will. My name was right there. Equal distribution of all assets between Anna Whitaker and Ryan Whitaker. Dated 7 months before the new one. I nearly screamed. He did it. He actually did it. He forged a new will, probably convinced Mom to sign something she didn't understand, or worse, signed it himself. That was the moment something in me broke. This wasn't just betrayal. This was theft. Identity fraud. A legal, deliberate erasure of everything I'd done. I took photos of the original will, made a copy, and left everything exactly as I'd found it. Then I called the probate lawyer the forensic expert had recommended. His name was Thomas Callahan, and he didn't waste time. Based on what you've told me, this is a textbook case of undue influence and possibly fraud, he said after reviewing the documents. If we can prove your brother manipulated your mother into changing her will, or worse, forged it, we can challenge it in court. But wouldn't that take months? Possibly years, he admitted. And it'll get ugly. I stared at the photos on my phone. my parents' old living room. The couch I used to crash on after a long shift. My mom's face in a frame by the fireplace, smiling. "I don't care," I said. "Let's do it." Filing a will contest isn't like what you see on TV. There's no dramatic courtroom moment right out of the gate. It starts with paperwork, and lots of it. Thomas, the probate attorney, filed a formal petition challenging the validity of the new will. We claimed undue influence and potential forgery. He attached the handwriting analysis, the photos of the previous will, and a sworn affidavit from me about the months I'd spent caring for Mom, and how she never mentioned changing anything. When Ryan got served with the notice, it took less than an hour before he started blowing up my phone. "Ryan, voicemail, are you out of your mind? You're suing me? Over what, some stupid conspiracy theory? You think Mom loved you more or something? You're pathetic." I didn't respond. Not to him. Instead, I focused on building the case. Thomas explained that courts don't automatically throw out a will just because there's a newer version. We had to prove that my mother wasn't of sound mind or that Ryan manipulated her, or, in the worst case, that the will was outright fabricated. Which meant we needed witnesses. So I called Karen, one of Mom's old friends from church. She used to stop by the house every Sunday, usually with muffins or gossip. She remembered the day my mom had signed the first will, said Mom had told her about splitting everything fairly between me and Ryan. But more importantly, I remember when she got worse, "Honey," Karen told me over the phone. She could barely hold a spoon. "You really think she signed something legal like that?" "Exactly." I asked if she'd be willing to write a statement. She agreed without hesitation. I reached out to the hospice nurse, too, a no-nonsense woman named Maribel who remembered how frail Mom had become in her last month. She had good days and bad days, she told me. But most of the time she was confused. Honestly, I doubt she could have understood a will. Not in those last few weeks. That was gold. Thomas began assembling a timeline, and it painted a grim picture of Ryan. According to Mom's medical records, her cognitive decline had accelerated in the final month before her death, the exact time Ryan claimed she had clearly and intentionally updated the will. And then came the smoking gun. Thomas got access to metadata from the scanned copy of the new will. It had been created on Ryan's home computer, 2 weeks before it was allegedly signed. Even if she had signed it, Thomas said, why would Ryan be the one drafting it? That's a massive conflict of interest. We now had a suspicious signature. Witness testimony that she was mentally declining. Evidence Ryan generated the document. And the original will showing equal distribution. It was all lining up. But we needed one more thing. Someone who'd seen Ryan with the document. That's when I remembered Marlene, our Mom's neighbor across the street. A sweet retiree who spent most of her time in her garden or spying, kindly, on the whole neighborhood. I drove to her house and knocked. "Anna. Sweetheart, I was wondering when I'd see you. I'm so sorry about your mom." I thanked her and got straight to the point. "Do you remember seeing Ryan bring anything over to the house a few weeks before she passed? Maybe papers?" She furrowed her brow. "He came by with a folder. I remember because it was pouring rain, and he ran inside with it under his coat. I waved, but he didn't even stop to say hi. Do you remember what day?" It was a Thursday. The week before she passed, I think." "Oh." I wrote it down in my calendar. I always track the weather, my arthritis flares up when it rains. She flipped through a small notebook and found the date, Thursday, October 12th. That was it. The day the forged will was supposedly signed. She agreed to write a statement. It was happening. We were building momentum. But I knew Ryan. He wasn't just going to sit back and let this happen. And sure enough, 3 days later, I got a knock on my door. It was Ryan. And he wasn't alone. He brought a lawyer. Ryan showing up at my doorstep with a lawyer wasn't just dramatic, it was a power play. The lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s with a clipboard and a forced smile, introduced herself as Megan Rothman. "Anna," she said, "we'd like to discuss a potential resolution before things escalate further." I didn't invite them in. We stood on the porch, Ryan smirking, Megan trying to look neutral. She continued, "My client believes this entire situation has been blown out of proportion. There is a will. It was properly signed and witnessed. He wants to avoid a long, expensive legal battle. We're open to a compromise." I raised an eyebrow. "A compromise? Like what?" Ryan jumped in, unable to help himself. "You drop the lawsuit, and I give you the house. That's fair, right? You love that place. You were always so sentimental." I stared at him. He thought I'd roll over for a fraction of what Mom intended. He thought I'd be grateful. "You want me to accept the house," I said slowly, "while you walk away with everything else? The retirement accounts, the investments, the life insurance?" "It's better than nothing," he said, shrugging. "Let's be real, you're not gonna win this." I turned to Megan. "This isn't a negotiation. It's a fraud investigation. You should tell your client to get ready for court." She tried to smooth it over, but I shut the door. Ryan pounded on it once before walking away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I started replaying everything, the manipulation, the timing, how quickly Ryan swooped in after Mom's death like a vulture. But it wasn't just about money anymore. It was about principle. He had rewritten our mother's last wishes for personal gain. And now he was panicking. The next day, I got a certified letter. Inside was a formal cease and desist, Ryan's lawyer threatening legal action for defamation and emotional distress if I didn't stop spreading lies. I handed it to Thomas. He actually laughed. "They're trying to intimidate you. Don't respond. We're not backing down." We filed a motion for discovery, which would allow us to dig deeper. That included digital records, emails, any communications Ryan had around the time the new will appeared. That's when things got interesting. Thomas's assistant flagged an email Ryan sent to a friend of his, a freelance notary, just days before the will was allegedly signed. It read, "Hey man, I need a favor. Got some paperwork I need Mom to sign. Her signature's shaky, so we might have to get creative. You cool with that?" That email alone was enough to call the validity of the will into serious question. But what made it worse? The notary responded, "No worries. I've done it before. As long as she's in the room, it's technically fine." We subpoenaed the notary. He tried to backpedal, saying he couldn't recall specifics, that he was just helping a friend, but it didn't matter, the damage was done. The court now had reason to believe the notarization process was compromised. Ryan was unraveling. And so was his story. I hadn't spoken to him since he showed up with his lawyer, but word got back to me through a cousin that he was furious, blaming me for dragging the family through the mud. Funny. He destroyed our mother's wishes. He tried to gaslight me. And now I was the villain. Then, a week before our court date, I got a text from an unknown number. "Meet me. No lawyers. Just us. I have a deal to offer." It was Ryan. Against my better judgment, I agreed, in a public place. We met at a coffee shop near downtown. He looked worn out. Less smug, more anxious. "I'll give you the house and half the accounts," he said quickly, before I even sat down. "I just want this to end." I leaned back. "Why the sudden generosity?" He rubbed his face. "Because I know what's coming. They're gonna tear me apart in court. You're not stupid, you built a solid case. I messed up, okay?" I stared at him for a long time. "Then why'd you do it?" He paused. "Because she always loved you more." I blinked. He went on, voice flat. "You were the caretaker. The favorite. The one who stayed. I couldn't stand the idea of you getting everything. So yeah. I made sure I got my cut. But it was never supposed to go this far. It was a confession. Half-hearted, sure, but real. And I recorded the whole thing. The moment I left that coffee shop, I sent the audio recording straight to Thomas. He called me 10 minutes later, his voice practically buzzing. This changes everything. We filed the recording as evidence the next day, along with a sworn affidavit detailing the meeting. It was damning. Not only did Ryan admit to forging the will, but he also confessed his motive, jealousy. When the court date finally arrived, the courtroom was packed. Ryan sat at the defense table, pale and rigid, his attorney whispering frantically beside him. Thomas looked calm, confident, even, and I was grateful for that. My hands were trembling, but I kept my focus on the truth. The judge, an older man with a sharp expression and a no-nonsense attitude, took his seat and reviewed the materials before opening statements began. Thomas stood first. Your Honor, this is not merely a case of a contested will. This is a case of fraud, of a calculated effort to rewrite the final wishes of a dying woman by her own son for financial gain. The plaintiff, Ms. Callahan, is not only the rightful beneficiary under the original will, she is also the victim of a deliberate and malicious deception. Ryan's lawyer objected to the language, but the judge let it slide. Then it was time for the evidence. We played the recording. Ryan's voice filled the courtroom. Because she always loved you more. I couldn't stand the idea of you getting everything. There was silence when it ended. Even Ryan didn't try to deny it. He just sat there, his face drained of all color. Then came the notary. Under oath, he admitted the signature might not have been entirely Mom's, that Ryan had helped guide her hand. The room tensed. The judge took notes. Next, they presented Ryan's emails. The ones where he asked his friend for help with Mom's shaky signature. The ones where they discussed getting creative. It was a landslide. When Ryan took the stand, he didn't even try to defend himself. He claimed he was grieving. That he wasn't thinking clearly. That it felt like survival. Thomas didn't let him off the hook. You say it was grief, he said, but you had time to meet with a lawyer, draw up documents, coordinate a fake signing, and then file it with the court. That's not grief. That's premeditated fraud. Ryan lowered his head. The judge spoke next. His voice was calm, but stern. I've seen many will contests in my time on this bench. But this is one of the most brazen attempts at manipulation I've ever witnessed. Mr. Callahan, your actions were not only illegal, they were immoral. You attempted to exploit your mother's death for financial gain, while stripping your sister of what was rightfully hers. He turned to me. Ms. Callahan, the court finds in your favor. The fraudulent will is hereby nullified, and the original will, naming you as the sole beneficiary, will be reinstated. My breath caught. He wasn't done. As for Mr. Callahan, you are hereby referred to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation regarding will tampering, fraud, and potential elder abuse. Gasps echoed across the courtroom. Ryan's lawyer stood frozen. I turned to Thomas, speechless. He smiled, not triumphantly, but with a quiet kind of pride. We'd done it. We'd protected Mom's legacy. Outside the courtroom, reporters tried to swarm, but I pushed through. I just wanted to breathe. To feel something again besides stress and anger and betrayal. That night, I sat alone in my mom's old living room. The house, my house now, was quiet. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally rest. Until my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. He's going to make this worse for you. You have no idea what you started. At first, I thought the message was just a scare tactic. But something about it, the timing, the wording, made my skin crawl. I tried to dismiss it as one last desperate move from Ryan, maybe a burner phone message sent in a fit of rage after losing in court. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. People like Ryan don't just take the loss and move on. They dig in, get vindictive, and start playing dirty. The next morning, I found out just how dirty. There was a post on Facebook, not from Ryan, but from his wife, Jessica. A long, emotionally charged exposé accusing me of manipulating our mother while she was dying. She said I'd alienated the family, coerced Mom into changing the will, and was now gloating about stealing a legacy. She even posted pictures, old photos of Mom and Ryan, cropped to make him look like the doting son, with captions like, "She loved him most, and this is how she was repaid." The post went viral. Friends of the family started commenting, then friends of their friends. Strangers joined in, some defending me, others attacking. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I was getting tagged in things I didn't even want to look at. And then came the email. From the company I'd just gotten a job offer from. "Due to recent online controversy involving your name, we've decided to pause your onboarding process until further notice. We hope to reconnect once things settle." That was the breaking point. Ryan wasn't just bitter, he was on a mission to destroy me. If he couldn't beat me in court, he'd try to ruin me in public. I called Thomas in a panic. "He's weaponizing the internet," I said. "He's turning people against me." Thomas didn't sound surprised. "Unfortunately, that's become a common playbook. He's hoping to make you so uncomfortable, you'll offer him a settlement just to make it stop." But I won in court. Legally, yes. Socially? That's a different battle. I didn't want to play his game. I didn't want to feed the drama. But when my own cousins started reposting Jessica's story and making passive-aggressive comments online, I knew I had to respond. I posted a simple statement. I did not manipulate my mother. A court of law reviewed the evidence, including a confession from Ryan himself. I loved my mom deeply, and she made her wishes clear. If defending those wishes makes me the villain in your eyes, so be it. I logged off after that. But the damage had been done. The next week, someone spray-painted the word thief on my garage door. I reported it to the police, but there were no cameras nearby and no leads. I felt violated, humiliated, and completely alone. Until I got a call. From my aunt, my mother's sister, who had stayed quiet during the entire ordeal. "I saw what they've been saying," she said. "And I need to tell you something." Those words hit me harder than I expected. My aunt, my mother's older sister, quiet, polite, the one who always stayed out of family drama, was calling me now, after everything had already blown up. "What is it?" I asked, half expecting more fuel for the fire. "I've stayed silent too long," she said. "But I think it's time someone stood up for the truth." She paused for a long breath. "Your mother told me about Ryan years ago, before her diagnosis, before she changed the will." My pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" "She found out he'd taken money from her. A lot of it. Over the years, little by little. He'd convinced her to loan him money for business ventures, credit card debt, even a new car once. Always promised to pay her back. But he never did. This wasn't entirely new to me. Mom had hinted once or twice that Ryan wasn't good with money, but this sounded deeper. More intentional. She didn't want to tell anyone because, well, she was embarrassed. And I think she still held out hope that he'd turn it around. But he never changed. When she got sick, she told me she couldn't trust him. That's when she started looking into changing her will. I sat down, overwhelmed. She told me, if something happens to me and Ryan tries to contest anything, remind your name that I wasn't manipulated, I was protecting myself. Tears welled up in my eyes. It was validation, the kind I desperately needed. And it wasn't just emotional. It was real. Someone else who'd heard it directly from Mom, without any prompting or legal pressure. "Would you be willing to write a statement?" I asked her quietly. There was a pause. "Yes. I will. It's time." I felt like I could breathe again. With my aunt's support, Thomas helped me draft a public response. Nothing aggressive, just facts. A letter from my aunt. A few redacted legal documents. A reminder that public opinion isn't the same as truth. We posted it. And while the trolls didn't vanish overnight, the tone shifted. Friends reached out to apologize. A few of my cousins even deleted their posts. But the biggest surprise came 3 days later. A message from Jessica. Not Ryan. His wife. I didn't know the whole story. He told me you manipulated your mom. I believed him. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Some things didn't need a response. But the final blow to Ryan's smear campaign didn't come from me. It came from someone I never expected, and it changed everything. It was a Wednesday morning when I got the call from Thomas. You need to check your email, he said. His voice was tight, a little too excited for someone usually so calm. I opened the message, and there it was, a PDF attachment, sent anonymously. No subject line, no message. Just the file. It was a transcript, over 20 pages long. At first, I thought it was a joke. Then I started reading. Ryan. Talking. Rambling. To who? I didn't know, maybe a friend, maybe someone he thought he could trust. But the transcript was from a recorded phone call. One where he laid everything bare. He admitted to lying about Mom's will. Said he knew she had changed it, but figured if he could paint me as greedy, maybe the courts would swing it my way. He called her an old bat who got manipulated by the favorite kid. He said the money was never going to fix anything for me, but it sure as hell could fix my credit score. He even mentioned the smear campaign. Bragged about making fake Reddit accounts. About paying some guy online to generate buzz against me. My hands shook as I read. Who sent this? And then I saw the final line, a name mentioned in the transcript. His former business partner. The one who cut ties with Ryan years ago after a failed investment. Apparently, Ryan owed him money too. A lot of it. And that guy? He had everything, emails, voicemails, even this phone call recorded during a heated argument. He'd grown tired of Ryan dragging his name through the mud too. So he forwarded it to Thomas, hoping it could help. And it did. We submitted the transcript to the court. My aunt agreed to testify, too. By the end of the week, Ryan's petition to contest the will was officially denied. It wasn't even close. The judge cited a pattern of manipulation, false claims, and admitted fraudulent intent. Ryan was fined for wasting the court's time. His lawyer dropped him. And the final blow? He was publicly outed in the local paper, not by name, but by title. Local man attempts to falsely contest mother's will, evidence reveals coordinated smear campaign. Everyone knew it was him. I didn't feel happy. Just relieved. Mom's wishes were respected. Her voice was finally heard. And mine? It was no longer silenced by guilt or doubt. In the weeks that followed, things slowly started to settle. I finally had the house in my name, officially. The renovations I'd once put on hold were now in motion. New flooring, fresh paint, a garden out back. It felt like I was reclaiming more than a space. I was reclaiming peace. Ryan? He went quiet. Publicly humiliated and legally defeated, he packed up and moved 2 states away. I heard he was crashing with an old college friend, looking for work. Nobody was exactly lining up to help him. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Vindicated. But mostly, I felt sad. Not for him, but for the years lost. The birthdays where we barely spoke. The holidays full of fake smiles. The moments Mom tried so hard to bring us together, only for it all to fall apart in the end. One night, I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by framed photos and old books she loved. I found one of her journals tucked behind a bookshelf. In it, a line that made me stop cold. If they ever fight over this house, they've missed the point entirely. That hit hard. This wasn't just about property. It was about family. About legacy. About how grief turns into something darker when resentment is allowed to grow unchecked. I don't regret standing up for myself. I had to. But I do regret how long I let his words shape my sense of worth. He made me feel like an intruder in my own story. Like a villain in my own family. But I wasn't. I was the daughter who stayed. The one who cared. The one Mom trusted, not because I was perfect, but because I never made her love feel like a transaction. And now, I was finally learning to trust that again, to trust me. The story didn't end with a courtroom win. It ended here, with me watching the sunset from the back porch, holding a mug of coffee, and finally, breathing. Because sometimes, justice doesn't come with applause. It comes with peace. And peace is enough.